Welcome to the MSP Corner podcast. Before we kick off our show, we would like to share what our main objective is at the MSP Corner. Our main goal is to help CEOs build profitable and self-sustainable IT service firms. We are not just providing tools for IT firms, we will be sitting in meetings with you to ensure your IT firm stays on track. The first area we are focused on, strategic sales. IT firms are stuck selling technology or IT support. We will provide you with the blueprint so you position your firm as an added value to your prospects. We will have framework on how to sell value so you influence the prospect into selecting your firm. The second area we see many IT firms struggle in is marketing. 90+% of businesses rely on antiquated marketing methods. The most popular choice, word of mouth. We have proven methods on how to attract the ideal prospect. Our framework will include how to become the online authority and be the business influencer for an industry. The third component to our package, scaling. IT firms walk away from opportunities because they lack the bandwidth or skill set to scale. We have lined up reputable businesses so our members can hire on-demand resources that will allow them to scale their business. The fourth area we will offer help in, selecting the right tools. In order to deliver value, you need the right tech stack. Our platform will offer information on products that are the ideal choice for MSPs. The fifth area we will offer help in is with documentation. Templates are a critical component when building an MSP. We will have contracts, proposals, SOWs, collateral, and much more in the template section. You will have every document you need to start up your managed IT service business. Thank you for tuning in. Let's go to our next podcast. I am your host, Fernando Leon. I'm joined by my co-host, Gregory Moravietz. And today we have Chris Potts, the CEO at One2One. And did I say your last name correctly, Chris? I forgot to ask if I was going to be pronouncing that correctly.
It's Potes.
Potes. All right, Chris Potes. I wanted to say Potes, but oh man. All right. Hot, right? You got H-O-T in there. So I'm like, okay, hot. This might make sense to go with hot, but nope, it's Potes. I was incorrect. Sorry about that.
No worries.
And just a little bit on Chris. He's been in the IT business for over 25 years, is a great problem solver, enjoys hiking and concerts. He's a tech enthusiast, loves Star Wars, and who doesn't? Star Trek, obviously. He's big into building Legos and collector of original Star Wars art and other paintings. He and his wife are self-proclaimed unofficial Cape May ambassadors, where they live in the summer and frequent much of the year. And a little bit on Chris's MSP, One2One. It's been around over 20 years, and they hit the ground running with over 100 endpoints to support day one across several clients. Under the one-stop shop break-fix model, he later converted his clients to the MSP model, which is commendable because that's a challenge in itself. And he's continued adapting to client needs and industry evolution, introducing a multi-layered cybersecurity service before the pandemic. And One2One provides fully managed IT services with a security-first approach with clients in multiple states and industries. So, Chris, thanks for joining us. I got a list of questions to ask because, we have a lot of our listeners are just starting out. They're building side hustles. They're established MSPs, but we want to target our main goal at the MSP Corner is to help MSPs build self-sustainable businesses. They struggle in a lot of areas, such as selling value, positioning their organizations as the thought leaders in their area. And that's the main goal at the MSP Corner, is to provide them with that guidance, not rely on word of mouth, and really take control of their marketing strategy. And but I'm going to jump right into it, just so you tell us your story of how your MSP business came about, and at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Um, my business started really kind of as an overnight. My company was downsizing. They'd had a series of selling off divisions of the company I was working for full time, and in their latest sell off, they included me. And instead of now managing 100 computers, I was relegated to being a support person in a much larger company that was headquartered across the country, and I was really going to babysit 30 computers. So literally overnight, I said, I'm not going to do this. This is, 17 steps backwards. I want to take control of my future. I also had a little bit of fear. I didn't want to be a consultant in the traditional sense. I didn't want to travel, didn't want to be told by my employer where I had to go and when I had to be there and all that kind of thing. So I literally overnight said, I'm gonna start an IT business. And I took my new employer, my old employer, and several tenants in the building who I had been friendly with, and had an IT services business with I probably had about 150 computers to manage plus servers day one, and just hit the ground running like that.
Wow. So you didn't even dip your toe into the pool. You just said, I'm jumping all in. And
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
yeah.
It
Wow.
it was a
That's great.
head
That's
first jump,
great.
and I think it was the first night or two after making this decision, I had dinner with my best friend and told him what I was doing and said, "I wanna hire you, like, now." And
Wow.
he joined me, worked with me for several years.
Nice. Nice. And how was it working with a friend? Because let me tell you, it's tough to work with family. It's tough to work with friends because when things don't work out, that relationship's going to be a little awkward at Thanksgiving, or if he's your best friend, it's like you just now killed a relationship that you had for 30 or 3 4 decades. How did that work out?
It worked out, really well. It was certainly a risk, but I trusted him complicitly. We were very, very close. We maintained that friendship throughout the time he worked for me. He actually left when he decided to move to Florida.
Ah,
So he worked with me for quite a while. He moved to Florida. He's still down there, and we're still best friends, best man at my wedding, the whole deal. But it was really a great experience being able to work that closely with a friend.
yeah, no, it is. It's I've worked with family and friends, and it's had its challenges. But when you each set expectations, and because it always seems like one will work harder than the other, and some people can get resentful, some people can they just don't know how to handle it. But with great communication, and if they're as hungry as you are, I don't see how it can go sour, right? I mean, you just have to clearly set expectations, and that's one thing that Gregory and I, we call each other family. And one thing that he does really good at is operations at our MSSP. He knows, he's great with managing people, training people. He's the tech champion. I mean, the guy is just phenomenal. And he's he just knows where to put people with their strong points. And that's where he put me. He's like, look, you're great with sales, manage sales. And I eventually took over marketing. What was your friend's main function at your MSP?
We shared a lot of the responsibilities, and it was kind of a little less formal. I think when I engaged him, I always had the hope that he would become a partner,
Okay.
in a formal sense. That never happened, but in an operational sense, he very much was. I don't think there was a single business decision I made while he worked with me that we didn't thoroughly discuss. So our roles were essentially on a level playing field, and these were the early days. I was billing a ridiculously low amount of money compared to what I bill today. He probably worked 60 hours a week, and I probably worked 80 hours a week. And we were okay with that. And we had a lot of great fun along the way, a lot of dinners together, a lot of concerts together. And it really just meshed very well.
Interesting. So he was as technical as you, as would you say?
I don't think he would be hurt if I said that I was probably a little more technical than he was.
Okay.
Um, but he was really good on he was still very good with support. He's very good with managing people and very sociable with people. I actually learned more of my social engagement in life through business.
Okay.
Before starting my business, I was more of an introvert. I'd be the guy standing in the corner in a party, not really engaging people. And in business, it was very much the opposite. I had to engage with people, with prospects, with clients. And I think that's where I really came out of my shell. He was always very naturally good at that.
Interesting. It reminds me of that's how actors live their lives, right? I mean, they're great on screen, but behind the screen, they're more introverted. They don't like to socialize. But you were able to do that in a business setting, and that takes courage, man. It's not easy to do because you have to put yourself out there, and when you put yourself out there, you're open to criticism, rejection, a lot of no's, a lot of people that will turn you down. So congratulations on that, because it's when somebody who's an introvert to do that, that's very, very challenging. And obviously I'm in sales. I wouldn't say I'm an extreme extrovert, but I'm not shy. I don't mind no's. I have very thick skin. I can take rejection very well. But for somebody who's an introvert, yeah, it can be challenging. It can be very challenging. I tell that to my daughter, who is a very different person on the soccer field. She played soccer for, I don't know, over a dozen years. And she is just uh, a beast on the soccer field. But when she comes off the soccer field, she's very compassionate and kind, and not the most, like, she's not aggressively challenging anybody. She's very open-minded and kind. But on the soccer field, oh boy, it's trouble for other kids. It was just very interesting to see how she could turn it off and on. And that's what it sounds like what you did is, hey, I have to turn it on. I have to build a business. And good for you. That's very difficult to do.
Yeah, thank you. It was certainly challenging. And I kind of just I didn't think about it. I think the more you think about something like that, the fear sets in, and it can be a motivator or it can be a hindrance. And for me, it kind of motivated me to just do and keep doing. Make the mistake and move on. And that's just where it started. The stars aligned, and I just kept pushing forward. I think the one thing you can't tell me is I can't do something because that'll
Yeah.
motivate me to do it.
Yeah. So, what would you tell? Because as you know, a lot of IT guys are in the support business. They are introverts, and these guys want to start a side hustle. They want to start a side business. What would you tell them as far as, hey, if you want to start your side business and you are an introvert, this is how you can overcome that challenge. Did you attend any courses, read books? What was your path to getting to that point?
For me, I did it in a different time in the industry, and back then it was very different than what it looks like today, both from a technological standpoint and from a service industry standpoint. And for me, it was trial by fire. Um,
Okay.
I did not go to college. I started working immediately out of high school. I had a part-time job for less than a year in the IT space, and then jumped to my first and only full-time job for a couple of years before I launched the business. And it
Wow.
was really everything was learn as you go, learn as experience, trial by fire.
Interesting. Wow, that's great. That's great. Well, I don't know if you know this, but single point of contact, the MSSP that Gregory and I work at, we're a direct competitor to the Connect Wises of the world and all the white label platforms. So we only work with IT firms. And what we've discovered working with IT firms is that they struggle with marketing and selling value. Did you have these type of challenges early on? Do you still have them? And if you don't anymore, how did you overcome these type of challenges?
So that's a great question. Early on, I kind of didn't. I always started with an image, right? I had been exposed to larger businesses, and when I started this out, I wanted to impose an image that there was something of substance behind just me. So I always spoke in the multiple, in it's we and us, not I. And I very early on, I bought LL Bean clothes, so nice high-end clothing with my logo on it. I did not standardize on a color. My company has colors, but when I bought the clothing, I picked all kinds of colors that were available, and I picked different style shirts, different style jackets. So I had a full assortment of just business clothes. And I tell you what, that got a lot of attention from people because I didn't look like a guy working out of my garage. And I wasn't. I actually had a full fledged office, but it gave an impression of a much larger established business, even in the very beginning. And even vendors, I remember even having conversations with Semantic back in the day. And every vendor partner I spoke with thought I was a much larger business than I actually was. Getting clients was really people I'd already established relationships with, people I'd been friendly with. Um, uh, because they were introduced to me before I even had a business, it made that conversion to bringing them in as a client so much faster and simpler because we already had a relationship and
Yeah.
referrals just grew it from there. I actually struggle more with marketing today than I did 20 years ago because I really didn't do so much of it back then. But I've always maintained that approach of branding and image and appearing larger than you are.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because Gregory built single point of contact as a side hustle, and there wasn't enough Gregory to go around. So he just continued hiring people, and it was just all back then in the late 90s about word of mouth. I mean, he couldn't fill positions fast enough. Am I right, Greg? I know you muted yourself, so I'm going to let you.
Yeah,
Uh,
and yeah, definitely back then the talent wasn't as good as it was in the middle because it's actually worse now than it was then. So there was a high point of maybe 5 or 6, 10 years ago where talent was way easier to find, way better, but not so much anymore.
yeah, but no, we're talking about the amount of business you would get back in the late 90s that you were constantly approached for more I mean, your network of friends would bring you in so much business, you couldn't fill positions fast enough.
Yeah, it's true. True.
Yeah. And things have changed. I mean, it's no longer like that. I mean, yeah, you can continue networking. And Chris, I also, when I first started here in the early 2000s, is I did a lot of networking. I built partnerships with organizations that referred work our way. But marketing has changed, and that's all we focus on now. Is just all of it is just marketing and how to become that thought leader online, and it's worked out for us. But I know what you're talking about. Today it's different, it's more challenging. And do you find that still to be a challenge? Marketing is still a challenge.
Yeah, marketing's a larger challenge now because I find that the industry is so much more saturated today than it used to be. Not 9/11, 2000, year 2000 kind of cleared out a lot of excess people in the industry, and then again during that late 2000s, 2008 9 recession period, a lot of the independent guys, the small guys, they didn't survive that.
Yeah,
I mean, I struggled like everybody else did, but I pulled through.
yeah,
And that made a big difference. So after 2010, going into 11, 12, the world changed again because there was a lot less competition out there. And again, referrals were still coming in. Today, there's a lot more competition. And you got to figure kids who are in their 20s and maybe even 30s, they grew up with smartphones in hand, right? We predate that. We go
Yeah.
back to, I mean, I got my Windows 95 certification when I was still a teenager. You know,
Wow.
that's going back a little ways, right? That's
Yeah. Yeah.
T1s were the craze, 56K modems were still being sought. Now it's everybody was born with broadband and an iPhone.
Yep. Yep. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Today it's just, well, yeah, the times have changed. I mean, it's night and day of how things operate now. But no, you're right. You're right. Tell us a little bit about your MSP business. What is your area of expertise? How are you helping small businesses? Because this will add to your, this is your opportunity to, you know, what does your business do, and where are you helping businesses? Because you want to, well, we just want to let the audience know.
Sure. So yeah, I've never focused on vertical. I always preferred more of that professional office, and what I mean by that is a business that's really centralized around an office instead of a factory or field technicians. More one that has a large office presence, and that also helped me survive COVID. Right? Suddenly, all these offices are empty and people are gone. If you were in retail, if you focused on retail or hospitality, things of that nature, your business took a big hit, right? I,
Yeah.
I didn't feel that because all of my customers were outside of that space. So I've always liked that office professional services type of clientele. And I've always had a few larger clients throughout my business life, meaning they had, 75, 100 seats. And I had two or three of those at a given time. So at my height, I think I was managing about 350 endpoints and doing that by myself.
Wow.
Um,
Wow. Yeah.
so yeah, if you establish efficiencies and build a solid foundation, both from the technology and your service level, then you can really grow quite nicely on your own even. I did have employees for a while earlier on, and I haven't had one for 15 years. So
Interesting.
my engagement with customers is always about the relationship. I always say I don't sell, I build relationships.
Yep.
I'm not a salesperson. No offense, it just doesn't sit with me. I'm a techie at heart. So I'm a problem solver, and I've never given that side of it up. I know a lot of MSPs and IT providers, they outsource the help desk because they don't want to deal with it. It's the grunt work of stuff. And I see it as opposite. Help desk was always a core function of my job, my career. It's where it started. It's where I built my relationships. So those two things kind of tie in for me. And I've always made it a core function of what I do. Even when I had staff, I still work the help desk as well because it's your touch point to the end users. And if you keep end users happy, it's much easier to keep executives happy. If you have a lot of end users screaming, that funnels right back up to the executives and you're keeping nobody happy.
So, Chris, I agree with you 1000%. Let me ask you a really important question, because this is something that Gregory and I touch on constantly. Out of all your endpoints, what percentage of them have problems? Would you say out of 100 endpoints, you have 50 tickets a month, 20 tickets a month, 10 tickets a month? And what
No,
contribute what
no.
contributes to that low maintenance, those low maintenance numbers, if it's there?
So yeah, I mean, my PSA is it pays for itself because it manages my contracts and recurring billing more than it does support tickets. I've always had a lower volume of support tickets, and that's even going back 20 years. I've only used the PSA for about 10,
Okay.
maybe 15 now. And the reason is if you build a strong foundation in terms of your network, your servers, and your computers. So you're not you're buying good equipment, good reliability. You're installing them clean, you're monitoring and managing that process, and then you maintain the monitoring and the updates and all that along the way, you build a foundation that allows you to greatly reduce support tickets because
Sure.
you're doing everything up front to make sure they stay healthy and optimal and running nicely.
What do you tell businesses that say, "Hey, Chris, I know you've been doing this a long time, but I got to extend the life of this hardware, and I'm trying to fit a square peg in a round hole." What do you tell those prospects that are like, "Yeah, we're thinking about working with you, Chris, but this is how we do things over here."
I educate them on the life cycle. The life cycle is really a key factor in your productivity, your staff productivity, your business sustainability and growth. If you're operating on a bumpy road, you're not going to get very far very quickly.
Yep.
So if your computer equipment is old, it's dated, you're buying the $300 computer, it's not going to work in a business environment, and it's going to cause more problems, more failures. Your employees aren't going to be productive. You're going to be paying them for sitting around waiting for equipment to work. So at the end of the day, that life cycle really defines how well you're going to run your business. And if you can't start from that, you're going to struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. You and I, same thing. It's exactly what I would tell a business because you want your people to be productive. You want them making your company money, not on tech support calls and not having problems. That's just counterproductive. It's counterintuitive to even think that way. That,
Yeah,
oh, I'm gonna go on the cheap because I'm gonna have higher profit margins. No,
no.
it's not.
You
It's not.
pay less upfront than you do on the back.
I agree. I agree. And that's my next question was going to be, what advice would you give the business owners who are trying to do this on their own? And that's one, I think, key piece of advice. You got to tell business owners the value that you will, well, just that they're going to be more productive and they're going to be more efficient if they listen to you. Because you're right, if they go on the cheap, it's not going to work out. You're going to have more problems than you want. So great piece of advice there. I love it. All right.
Chris, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So you have a customer and they're, $900 a month MRR and monthly recurring revenue, and they're semi chatty, and then you pick up another five, and they're all the same, pretty. They occupy maybe 5-10% of your week each, and then you get like you get 10 of those, and now they're chewing on 50-60% of your week because they're just calling you. They've got problems. Things are the way they are. Then you realize you have to do something, like get an account manager, to help offset that. What would you do in that situation? Because the moment you hire an account manager, you're kind of nullifying the fact that you have not, $900 clients. You're like, I just paid my account manager exactly what those guys bring in. So what is your answer to that? Because that kind of stunts growth for us in this business. And I was just wondering what your thoughts on how you would deal with that kind of situation.
Sure. Well, at first, I'd say I really haven't been in that situation. Um, I've been lucky enough, and I think it's also judicious enough. Even when I started out, I didn't just take a client because they were there. I've always been very particular about converting a prospect to a client, and I've turned away prospects before of various sizes for various reasons. I even fired a client a month into their engagement because they just couldn't get it together and were actively working against me in trying to onboard them. They actually went out of business a few months after, so I think I saw the writing on the wall there. But I think you have to be judicious. You have to acknowledge that you have a skill set, you have a business model as an IT or managed service provider. You have your own requirements, and you need to match that against prospects. You can't be so desperate just to take in a dollar and then wind up spending five to make it. That's how business fails. You have to be really thorough in evaluating the potential of a prospect before you convert them to a client. Because if they're going to be a hassle, if they're going to be a problem, if they're going to fight you all along the way, then they're actually costing you more money than you're billing them, and it's not worth the hassle.
I agree. I agree with Chris 1000% there. Okay, I got to hang up in 1 minute. So, Chris, you got a time machine. You can go back and talk to a 20-year younger Chris. You can give him one piece of advice about your MSP business. What would it be?
Don't be afraid to make mistakes and always value yourself and what you do. If you're going to undervalue yourself and you're going to just try and beat somebody's price, you're never going to survive and you're going to beat yourself down. No one's going to respect you and your service and your experience if you don't respect yourself.
Yep, I agree. Ooh, yeah, that's great. I agree 1000%. I love it. I love it. Yeah, no, that's great. Well, Chris, thanks for joining us. I got to run. I got another meeting to go to, but I appreciate you making time for us. I'll give you a link to this podcast once the team gets it uploaded.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
All right,
Thanks.
take
Great
care.
talking to you.
All right.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to sign up to be a member on www.mspcorner.com. Please share our link with a CEO who will find our information beneficial to their business. Have an awesome day.